You're listening to the Get Out and Drive podcast with John, Custom Car Nerd Meyer, and Jason, Old Car Guy Carr. We'll be bringing you gearheads everything you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive?
Well, welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Get Out and Drive podcast. I am John, Custom Car Nerd Meyer.
And I'm Jason, Old Car Guy Carr.
I have no idea where to start. My mind's scrambled. I just watched the most fantastic car movie. Jason, I know car guys and gals, they've watched all sorts of car movies throughout the years, and you get used to the 60s and 70s kind of kitschiness of a film. It's always tongue in cheek, and it's always kind of a B movie, sort of unbelievable fun and kind of a slice of life in somebody's life at one night, and kids having fun and things. I just watched Sunday, filmed completely on an iPhone by Anthony Natoli. We've got him here today on our podcast, and I want to get some insight on this super cool movie that he made, and maybe I can get some information on why it was so cool and what made him start to film it. Anthony, you here with us, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Talk to me about your movie. I saw lots of things in there as references to other car movies and things of the past. Is that for good reason? And kind of lead us through.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan. Love following you guys and all the things you guys do all the time. It's inspiring for me to get out and drive. I have a '67 Dodge Dart Slant 6 that we used in the film. It's a movie about two brothers who inherit this little jalopy car, and they go bracket racing. I grew up watching car movies, and I always loved like Two Lane Blacktop or American Graffiti. All those movies are amazing. I just never saw a bracket racing movie. And growing up on Long Island, we had a drag strip me and my dad raced at in West Hampton. And I raced. I had a '73 Plymouth Duster 340 H code car that I raced at Englishtown. Became track champion there for the high school category. I never even picked up a camera. I was really not into photography or anything like that. But I wrote this script about the two brothers going bracket racing, and thought I'd love to make this into a movie, but no aspirations or anything like that to do it. And then the iPhone came out and got really amazing with the quality. And I said, the bracket racing where most people start, it's the same way we would make this movie. We're using what we have. We don't have big fancy gear or anything like that. And so we're going to make the movie the same way the story kind of rolls. And these two brothers, they don't have any money. That they're driving the car to the track, racing guys with trailers and some money. And I think a lot of people can connect to that story, whether you've just gone to the track or taken your car down the track one time, or even wanted to go. Maybe this would inspire people to get back in the seat and go out and support drag racing again. So there were a lot of reasons to make the movie. And I loved Shirley Muldowney's film when I was a kid, Heart Like a Wheel. I thought that was a really pretty good, accurate depiction of kind of what drag racing is about. But I wanted to tell the story of what most people deal with on their first round going down the track. And we've had 21 nominations and 10 wins in the film festival circuit, and so it's nice to see that people of all kinds are enjoying the film, car people or not.
Anthony, as we kind of look into and dive into sort of the plot and the story and the characters of the movie, One thing that John alluded to was some of the special characteristics that we saw during the movie that kind of takes out from some of the classics, like hubcaps falling off, and then the next scene they're back on. Like, is this some of the stuff that you planned as part of the movie to say, you know what, I'm going to throw homage to Steve McQueen in that fantastic chase scene where that Dodge Charger loses about 13 hubcaps? Like, tell me a little bit about the thought process behind inserting some of these, little things into your movie.
Good looks, and I'm glad people are seeing those things, because that is absolutely 100% what we were trying to do. Steve McQueen, that chase scene is probably the best chase scene, at least one of the best. And pulling inspiration from that, I said, we got to lose a hubcap or two. So that was definitely part of the game plan. Watching all these movies. Actually, I'd say more than anything, the biggest thing I didn't want to do was make Fast and the Furious. I mean, I've been saying it for a while, but you're either doing a wheelie or you're burning the tires up. You really aren't doing both usually. And I'm just tired of watching these kind of films. I was like, I want to see the authentic version of what drag racing's about, but also make a film in there that feels like something anybody could watch and enjoy. Because a lot of these car movies, they get so involved with that um, it doesn't translate to other people in the room. And I thought it was really cool that, like, a lot of my aunts and people who aren't into car culture enjoyed the film just as much as the guys who grew up watching, Two Lane Blacktop or any of those films. I mean, if you pay attention, actually, there was a guy at the track. He had a Chevy that was in primer. It looked like, he was trying to make it look like the Two Lane Blacktop car. We got that in there specifically because it's an homage to Two Lane. I actually met one of the guys that worked on that movie just recently, and he really enjoyed the film too, and what we did with it. Even, like, there's a character in there. She's pretty much our homage to Shirley Muldowney, and she's the big time racer at the track. So yeah, all that stuff was definitely important. I wanted to be inspired by that stuff rather than rip it off or something.
Yeah, you can certainly tell from watching dozens and dozens of previous car movies that you were highly influenced by other car movies. And I liked the fact that it was kitsch, homage, and not quote unquote ripped off. Like you said there. Was the VW Bug not being a convertible, was that on purpose?
That was because it was very tough to find another one. In fact, we went and filmed with this Volkswagen Beetle. It was a quick weekend shoot, and this guy brought it out. I met him at a car show. I told him we needed a bug for the shoot, and I said, okay, great. Next weekend, could we go out and shoot it? We're going to go out to Montauk, Long Island. And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I called him on Friday the next week, and he's like, I'm sorry, I just sold the car.
Oh,
I was like, wow, okay.
Wow.
And then I could not find another red convertible blacktop Volkswagen Beetle. So I happened to be driving to work one day, and I saw a red Beetle on the road, and I just picked up my phone and shot it. And I was like, close enough.
That's what I thought. Hanging out, that's what I thought was stupid kitsch. It's no different than watching Rockford Files, and the whole Pontiac Esprit changes years while you're watching it because they've pulled a J-turn from another year that they filmed. And that part is what made me ask, is this on purpose?
Yeah,
that's cool. That's stupid.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I hear you. One thing that you mentioned what made me accept it and know that it was okay was I was watching the movie Rudy, and I forget what year that takes place in, but there's a shot and it's definitely in like the 60s, I guess, or something like that. But there's a shot where a Toyota Corolla drives by, and I was like,
Mhm.
if it could happen there, it can happen in my boot. It's totally fine. And I'll say it's funny that you mentioned that the Volkswagen Beetle thing, because I have a friend of mine, Joe, who is a big fan of the movie, and he's seen it like 20 times, and he's like, I just noticed that that the Beetle was the different Beetle. So I was like,
Right.
well, that's cool. I mean, car people are going to rip it apart. There's no question about it. But we did this movie for $5,000 over a 5-year period on an iPhone, with just friends and family. So there was no big budget. There was no Hollywood money. There was no big star power behind our film. This was literally a testament and to the sport, and a love for making films and wanting to do something bigger than ourselves. And so if there were moments where we had hiccups and things didn't quite match up and line up, I think the intention is there enough for people to see that we really tried our hardest to make the most entertaining film that we could possibly make at that time. And it's really exciting to go and see it in a theater. We've had that opportunity a few times now, and we actually won down in Hilton Head for best independent feature, and had a whole bunch of car people in the theater and watching it, and the response was absolutely like floored me. Guys were coming up in their 70s, going, "You made me feel like I was 19 years old again," and that that really is the most important thing. If the Beetle is a different, car, I could throw all that stuff away just to hear somebody say that they had a good experience watching something I worked so hard at.
Saying that is not derogatory at all. And please
Oh, no,
don't
no,
take
yeah.
it. Okay.
Oh,
And
absolutely not.
because
You're
I've
paying attention, and that's important to me.
yeah, because I didn't want to sit here and freeze when you said, well, what'd you like about the movie? And I said, well, when the car with the thing does the drag racing and the stuff. I didn't want to say
Yeah,
something
yeah.
random. And I want to say that I enjoyed the movie. I kind of got into it at first, and I in my brain, honestly, I said, I hope this is good for the car scene, for the car guys, for everything. I said, I hope this is good. And after a moment, I felt like I was watching Heart Like a Wheel. I felt like I was watching American Graffiti 2, which is a terrible movie. Not to say your movie's terrible, but
I was going to say, careful
I
with
hear
your
you.
wording there, John.
right. No. And Anthony understands what I'm saying.
I hear you.
Just as much as Death Proof is terrible, I thought the whole situation was intensely kitschy and awesome. I mean, that's going to be, if I write up some kind of a thing on the internet, I'm going to say Sunday. Get Out and Drive feels that this is intentionally kitschy and awesome, and that's my official review of the movie. So I'll let Jason talk.
Well, I would be remiss if at some point during this podcast somebody didn't lean into their mic like I'm about to do and say Sunday, because I think that's exactly what we're looking at when we see this movie, and taking people back. I am a product of the 70s, and when I go back and I watch some of these movies, what was accepted as acting in some of these movies back in the 60s and 70s was just that. It was accepted. Not saying your acting was bad, but it's very reminiscent of what type of movie we would watch as car guys from that era. Again, looking back at the details, you paid very close attention to the details of the cars, in the fact that we didn't want a bunch of modern cars driving in the background. There was at one point, I forget the protagonist's name, but he was on the phone calling the cops on you because you were going to go drag racing, and in the background of the building you can see the modern cars reflections driving by, but never once did you see it's almost like a camera kind of dropping down into the frame type of thing. Whether it was on purpose or not, it's accepted. And as an independent film, and you just said $5,000 budget over 5 years, and if you guys are listening to this podcast right now, we're not talking a 30 or a 45-minute movie. We're talking 105 minutes of entertainment. That's no joke. A lot of modern day movies still cap their movies at 120, at an hour and a half, 90 minutes, 90 to 100 minutes. This is 105 minutes of pure racing entertainment. A few times you get tugged at the heartstrings right at the very beginning. And at the end, same thing. The family kind of comes together again. I want to know, where exactly did the idea for the script come from? Did it come to you in a dream? Is it something you physically had to sit down and say, I want to write a film, and this is what it's going to be about?
Yeah. Well, before I answer your question, I just want to say too, at no point in time did we tell you what year this is, So, that was kind of part of the idea with the film initially when we started filming. I was like, I want no car after 1975 to be on screen. I want to build a period piece visually. But at no point in time do we ever tell you a date or anything like that. And I think that makes it fun for the viewer to try to put in their 2 cents with it, because I always enjoyed that with films. So, but yeah, when you see those little reflections and stuff, that's the nature of the beast with independent filmmaking at this level. But yeah, so the movie came to be. I was having a fever dream one night. I was having a very lucid dream, and I sat in a theater next to myself. There's only two people in there, me and another version of me. And I was very aware that I was dreaming. And the other version of me said, "We're going to watch a movie that you made. So when you wake up, write it all down." And I watched the entire film, and it was really good. And I remembered I was dreaming, and I said, okay, I'm going to wake up now, and I'm going to grab pen and paper. I'm going to write everything down. And did that, and never thought I would ever make it. I just was like, wow, it was pretty wild that I had this extremely intense dream, and my brain came up with all that. Now, what you're seeing today as a product of it is an iteration of that. It's not the full exact thing, but it's the closest I could possibly get to it in real life. You make plans and God laughs, as they say. So there were a lot of moments during the shooting of the film where something went wrong or a character couldn't show, and so I had to rewrite a scene like that. But that's the nature of making films, and especially at the level that we were making it at. But at no point in time did we say this is going to work against us. We're going to make every bump in the road something that's worth hitting, and even, there were some pivotal moments in the film that weren't planned, but just kind of happened as we were finding the film. And I wouldn't change anything today. So I think that's kind of the testament too to like drag racing. Sometimes a little duct tape goes a long way. And it still gets you down the track. And that's the moral of the story, really.
Well, I noticed one thing from the first Gone in 60 Seconds was the guy calling from the phone booth. Was that homage to what happened in your movie, calling about the drag race? Is that where that came from?
Yeah, everything is definitely inspiring something, but the protagonist, antagonist in the film is a real jerk, and
Right.
I just figured this would be like a great moment to just make him even worse.
Right.
And yeah, in Gone in 60 Seconds, that's definitely like one of those great ones where I watched it a bunch, but I don't know how much it like informed the
Mhm.
storytelling. Same thing with Bullet, or like even Two Lane Blacktop. Believe it or not, like I watched Two Lane Blacktop a whole bunch, and it's such a weird film to me. Like it's this French director telling a very American story. I think I heard an interview with James Taylor not too long ago, and somebody brought up Two Lane Blacktop, and he said, "I've never even seen the movie." because he's
Kidding me?
so
He hasn't
embarrassed
seen
by it.
he has not seen the finished cut.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And Dennis Wilson obviously is great, you know. So
Right.
I mean, I pulled from all of that stuff. I was definitely watching all those things while I was making my film because
Hmm.
it was just helping me keep motivated.
I was trying to put myself in your creative director writer shoes as I was watching.
Mm.
And that's one thing that I picked up because sadly I have all of these movies memorized and and I tried to say, oh hey, I picked that up. The shot.
Yeah, well, you got a good eye because you're picking up on all the stuff on the that kept me up at night.
Mhm.
Things
Oh,
like,
I
oh
understand.
man, is that going to work? Is that going to work? But
Right.
I'm a musician. I'm in my studio right now. I've been playing guitar and producing music my whole life, and that's really where all this comes from. So one thing that I always sort of believed in was they say in music you're always a half step away from the right note. So even if you're on the wrong one, you could kind of bend or turn a string or get to the right place. And so in filmmaking, it's very similar, where it's kind of like jazz, where it's like, all right, we're not right there yet, but
Hmm.
maybe we can fix it in editing. Maybe we can, play with something a little bit differently and have fun because
Hmm.
what's a movie for? I mean, we're not trying to make, the greatest movie of all time. We're making the best movie we can, but also to have a good time. I want people to watch this movie and go, that wasn't a waste of my time. That was the biggest thing. So all the little hiccups and stuff I had to get over, but it was kind of wild because the movie didn't feel like a movie until we were really done. We shot all the way up until like 5 weeks before we released the movie,
Wow.
because there were just like little pieces that just didn't feel quite right. And so I would like invite an actor to come over my house and be like, listen, I just want to shoot this little quick insert. Let's see if that works, and it would fix a million problems. So,
Mhm.
it was definitely a labor of love, and I got to thank my cast and my crew and all the people that came out and swung for the fences for me. Because, like I said, this is all my friends, family, musicians, people I've been friends with my whole life. My aunts and my uncles are in it, so there's no real actors in it. A couple the guy that plays our uncle is a serious actor. I met him by accident one day, and he said, "If you ever need somebody to come in and help you out with something, let me know." I was like, "I got a part for you," and he knocked it out of the
Who
park.
has wonderful hair by the way.
Yeah,
Paul Paul's character, the Paul character, he has wonderful hair by the way.
yeah, yeah. A lot of hair in that movie. That's for
That
I
sure.
see
wasn't Paul.
that. I see that.
Yeah.
And the Italian edginess, I can certainly see that. I'm one of those relocated Midwest Italians. So
Ah, yeah. It's funny. I actually just was talking to John, Monte Calvo, the race team,
mhm.
John Monte Calvo.
I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, yeah. So I just sent him a copy of the movie, but he was asking, they were asking, is this inspired by him? I was like, no, that's my grandmother's maiden name. So I,
Wow.
probably somewhere down the line we're related. But
So just
yeah,
wicked happenstance.
yeah, totally. He's from Long Island. Who knows? We should probably look at our ancestry somewhere. But yeah, I grew up on Long Island, and it's a very a town. We grew up in a very Italian household, so I felt like that should definitely be part of it because they say write what you know, and I was like, well, that's what I know. So they're Italian.
Well, that's just it. You say, right, what you know, the less you have to act, the better it is, right? Like if you're setting the scene with the, Italian family, Italian, little bit of an Italian accent in New York, you're talking the way you talk and all this stuff, like hands were going.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just everything that you were doing seemed to come natural, very little acting involved. So you have this dream, you get that dream to paper, so to speak, to a script of some sort. And then all of a sudden the iPhone comes out and you say, you know what, this is what we're going to use to film. And I do know that there looked like there might have been some drone shots in there too. But whether you're using the iPhone or not, I don't know. But you're getting the movie put together. You're trying to find out what the logistics are. You're trying to find people to play the parts. You get the film recorded. Then what? Who edits? Who has the expertise to put all 5 years worth of video into this film? Like, what happened there? What happened when it was all said and done? And who's doing all this stuff for you?
Yeah, so I did a lot of it myself. I'm not going to take all the credit though. I had my buddy James Morano, who actually did that drone stuff, which we controlled with an iPhone. So that was kind of like our, very minimal amount of drone stuff, but whatever we did control with an iPhone. I scored the whole film. I did all the music for it. I edited all the scenes together. But My buddy James came in about halfway through shooting the movie, and he's sort of a wizard, and so I kind of got the movie to a pretty close place of being finished, I guess. And then he kind of came in, and it's really tough whenever you're working on something such a big project. I mean, um, the amount of footage we had and everything was crazy. So at some point, it's nice to have another set of eyes on something that can, you could bounce off of and whatever. And he's great with color correction. And we really sat down together and really fine tuned everything, try to make things feel cohesive because when you're shooting over 5 years, a lot changes. People look a little different, or maybe actually this one day is 3 different days. So we're trying to match things up the best we can. But yeah, James was extremely helpful. My buddy Pat Moss did like the all the credits in the beginning, like there's like little animations and stuff like that. So there was definitely people that helped me along the way. But I was definitely captaining the ship. I've never directed anything like this before, but I did feel confident that we can get it done with a really small team of people.
Have you had? I know you've been had several awards and several nominations and things. Has any of them been iPhone specific, like things that
We
were recorded with iPhone, or the award or mention was specifically iPhone related?
Mhm. Well, we were runner up in the Smartphone Film Festival in Australia, which was really exciting and cool. Wish we could have been there for that. But almost all of the festivals we've been in were just, you know, we're going up against pretty heavy hitters. It was kind of cool. We flew out to London. We got nominated at the Grand Motoring Film Festival I'm sorry, the International Motor Film Awards in London. Two motor film awards gets confusing. But we flew out to London and we're sitting next to like Porsche, and Ferrari, and Lamborghini, and they've got all kinds of crazy horses in the game. And our little film pops up, they play it, and it says shot on an iPhone. And man, you should have heard the room because people were like, jaws were on the floor. They're like, we spent
Nice.
millions of dollars, and guys are coming in here with an iPhone movie, and it looks freaking great, And it was
Mm-hmm.
a real. We didn't win because we're going up against some pretty big people and everything, but it was just wonderful to be included and to be
Mm-hmm.
sitting next to these unbelievable talented people. And it was the first time in my life I've ever felt like I shouldn't have been somewhere like that. It was kind of wild, but very welcoming, very, very warm reception there. But yeah, the festival circuit's been crazy. Great response. I couldn't be happier. And it seems like we still have a few more that we're waiting to hear back on, which is exciting. But we're actually getting ready to shoot a sequel. and we're going to jump to like 1985 with this next one. And the film awards were definitely something that pushed us to go in that direction because the response was so great.
Well, congratulations for that surreal experience, because you've obviously explained it as such. That's incredible, and it had to kind of blow everyone away from your description that people spent millions of dollars doing things and so much technology and everything, and here comes someone out of nowhere that does what you have done and your team. That's incredible. I applaud you, and great job.
And I think, again, just going back to like, with bracket racing particularly, it's this type of sport where anybody can do it. You can have the slowest car at the track, which these characters do, and be competitive. I was saying before how I raced in Englishtown when I was in high school. I had a 73 Duster. I was the fastest car. I was going 12 O's at 110 miles an hour. I was chasing everybody in my class. My biggest competition was this girl that had a Honda Accord that went 25 seconds. And I'd have to sit on the converter for 15 seconds and chase her down. And it was infuriating, And she was very great. And she was a great racer. And, this film is sort of, it's the same thing where it's like with today, with having an iPhone, with having this much power in our pocket. If you're somebody who has ever wanted to make something, the time is now. I mean, the power is in your hands. It's literally in your pocket. And that's kind of what was the inspiration for me. It was like, if I want to go racing, I could take my wife's Honda and go racing and maybe win. I've seen it happen many a time. And if I want to go make a movie, I don't need $1 million camera to do it. Clearly, you can do it with a cell phone and probably less. So, moral of the story is and I guess what we were hoping to do with the film is inspire people to go drag racing, get out and drive, and go make movies, go be creative, do something you've always wanted to do, because it's a great opportunity to do it today.
So the film itself kind of takes place in what seemingly two younger fellas, the young brother in his late teens, and your character in his maybe early 20s. If there's some people out there listening right now, some young people who are listening to this podcast, and they want to do what you just said, just do it. The time is now. What's that one piece of advice that you could offer them to go do that? Here at Get Out and Drive podcast, our mantra is what drives youth. We're not necessarily talking about cars on today's podcast. We're talking about creativity and getting out there and doing things. What would be that one piece of advice you would say to the youth who may want to do the same thing that you're doing, create that film or that video or whatever? What one piece of advice do you have?
Don't be so hard on yourself. I think we tend to have aspirations to mimic something that is way out of our league. I can say it with as far as music. When I was younger, I wanted my recordings to sound, like $1 million studio. But really, what was the most important thing was to just start recording, like, to do it. You want to go racing, if you have, something that runs, go racing. You don't need a Top Fuel Funny car to do that. You want to make a movie, you don't need a big studio to tell you what to do. It's great to fall on your face. It's really humbling. It's also really exciting to see something that you worked really hard to do come to life. And even if it doesn't come out the way you want it to, you're going to learn something. You're going to come away with knowledge. And sometimes the most important lesson we can learn in life is what not to do. So if you take a chance and you roll the dice and you don't get what you wanted, do it again. I always equate it to playing guitar. It's like you want to learn something, it's going to take a lot of strums to get it. But you could take a million shots at it. It's nothing, it's not going to bite you back. And if you have aspirations to be a filmmaker, for instance, and you're going, oh, I don't have a drag strip or a car to shoot or whatever, go make something that you can make. Go to the park, grab a couple of friends. It doesn't take much to see results. And there's so much information. YouTube's an incredible resource. I learned probably all I know about filmmaking from watching YouTube videos. So, there's the information's out there, that's for sure.
So we kind of talked about that and kind of bullshitted about, and you said that the guy from Saving Private Ryan lived down the street from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ed Burns. He's a filmmaker, director. He did a movie called The Brothers McMullen when I was a little kid, and we would follow him around while he was shooting this movie, and it was just very inspiring. And I got to meet him a few years back, and he gave me a lot of great advice. One thing he told me was to cast myself, which I didn't really want to do, but he said you'll always be there to save the day, which turned out to be true and good wisdom. But I had gave him a copy of the movie, and one thing that a response I got back was, "You guys killed it with the cars," because there was, he's doing a show called Bridge and Tunnel right now for like Stars, I think it is, or something. And, they're doing a really good job with all the background, all the cars and everything. So to get a compliment like that was a pretty big, thing for my confidence to know, like, we did something right. And that's a fun thing. Like when we're watching the movie today, like after editing and knowing all the problems that are in the film, watching it as its like totality and just following the story, there's so many little things that I just don't even see anymore, because I'm more interested in the whole story rather than the details. But I love this podcast. I love what we're talking about, because I appreciate the fact that you guys are watching TV and movies the way I do. And my wife sits there and goes, "Will you shut up about the tires? I know those are not the right tires." I'm like, "Yeah, but this is what I do. I'm scanning in, like I mentioned before. The orange crate. I was like, I gotta have my orange crate in there. I gotta have the right bikes in there.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a lot of things that were important to me, and I'm glad you guys are seeing all that stuff.
Oh, hell yeah. And I saw all that, and it doesn't matter to me. And like I said, I chalk it up to kitsch, because it doesn't matter. I can watch the Goldbergs and there's a 2000s Caravan going in the background.
Right.
I mean, after a while, who cares? And you see that, I mean, you can't close a set.
Yeah.
You got an iPhone.
I wish we could have.
Right, you can't tell the guy that's across the street that's driving by. One of the first things my wife said, and I am, as a car guy, I'm bitchy about white letter tires in a 60s car movie that was shot today.
Yeah.
And
one thing that was cool, there's a scene in the movie where we have a problem with the car at the track, and then we have to get dropped off by a friend of ours. He's got this beautiful gold Nova. And
I know that car, by the way, from the internet and from social media. I know of that car very well.
That's Joe Stemler. He's a good friend of mine. Brought his car out for the movie. Super great guy and amazing supporter. So we had this beautiful Nova, and we're pulling in front of my grandmother's house. And I had made friends with a lot of people in my area. We shot the whole movie in like my town that I grew up in. And I made friends with a bunch of car guys in the area, and I just had their numbers. And I was like, "Listen, we got to shoot this scene over at my grandma's house. Let's see if we can get a few cars over here." Well, 4 guys pulled up with awesome cars, and I knocked on my neighbors' houses and said, "You mind if I park this Buick in your driveway?" And we've lined the whole street up with as many cars as we could.
You set the scene and you set the background of that scene, even if a car was blurry distant.
Yeah,
it sets a scene.
and it just gives like a high budget feel to something that doesn't have one, and it's like it's one of my favorite scenes just 'cause I'm like, look how
Yes.
cool that's the best it's ever going to look. If I always wish I grew up in the 70s. I was born in 1985, but I grew up playing, Van Halen and Led Zeppelin. Like I was all about like rock and roll, and I used to listen to my dad tell stories with his brother, who the movie's loosely based off of. My dad's name is Michael, and his brother is Joe. And they used to tell me about going down to the conduit and going racing and just all these crazy, wild stories, throwing people in the trunk of their car to sneak into the movie theater and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, I want to do all that stuff. I want to experience that. So the movie was just sort of also like a fun trip. It was like an opportunity to like live out a fantasy. And when I see that scene, I'm like, that looks like I'm living in 1975, which is super cool. So it was a fun experience on that level.
That's
sure.
That's exactly what I remember about 1976 to 78. Because I was born in.
We were trying to capture like the energy of the time rather than being
Yes.
like super specifically, exact to the period. We were like, let's try to just do the best we can with the stories we have and the experience I have to just give the audience a taste of maybe what it was like. And what's super cool, like I said before, is I'm getting people that raced on the conduit and
Mhm.
ate at that pizza place that we ate at, and they're coming to me and going like, that was my experience. How did you know? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I paid attention to my parents and their stories as a kid, and I don't just use my intuition. And
It had a very dazed and confused movie feel to it.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's important. That's important because I remember I remember 76 to 78. I remember exactly what that was like. I remember the pinball machines. I remember what it was like pre-video game.
Yeah.
I remember seeing my first video game and going, what the hell is this? In a gas station on the corner. And I remember.
I just watched that movie again too. And I'm like, man, this movie's awesome. I just love the cars. It's like
sweet emotion in the beginning. I can close my eyes and I look at that and that Orbit Orange GTO in the beginning. The whole thing is creepy and it makes me melt.
Yeah, so I love every car, and then I'm like, oh, I want to drive that. I want to be in this, And I think that was a big inspiration aesthetically for the movie. Was like watching that one and going, these guys did a really good job. I want to get as close as I can to that aesthetic as possible, and there's just that duster in it, is like so cool to me. I had it. Mine was like red with white stripes, but. If I had any other color, it'd be that one.
Right.
You can't get it perfect.
Right. You can't get it perfect. It doesn't matter. And I'll let Jason talk because I think he can. And I don't remember the last time he did. Talk to him about Norman Altizer.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring that up because when I first came on board with the Get Out and Drive podcast about a year ago, one of the first guests that we had on was this older gentleman by the name of Norman Altizer. And Norman is a vehicle. He sources period correct vehicles for movies. He doesn't own them all. He just knows a phone book full of people that do. And if he was to, if you were to call him for, Sunday 2 or whatever you're going to call it, the conversation would probably go a little bit like this. Hey, Norman, it's Anthony. I need some cars pre-1985. Need about a dozen of them. Can you help me out? How much time do you need, Anthony? And you would tell him, if I could have it for 6 months and I need them tomorrow, he'd be like, let me make a few phone calls. And the attention to details, like we're having this conversation almost all over again from a year ago that we had with Norman, because he was talking about a movie that he cast the vehicles for. Do you remember A League of Their Own?
That was another one. I watched that a ton of times too.
Yeah.
Not the same period, but
Yeah, he cast the vehicles in that movie.
Wow.
So
I'd love
that's
to talk to him.
detail.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I did. I mean,
Right.
I grew up in my dad's an automotive instructor and trainer, worked on top fuel funny cars, did all kinds of crazy stuff. I've been in the car culture my whole life. So what was very cool was like all those cars in the movie, for the most part, are like friends of mine. And I was just like, hey, can you bring your Mustang to the pizza place over here? We're going to shoot something. No problem, Anthony, and then just come out. But to have a bigger extended family, always, we're always
It's
happy to make
always
friends.
it's always about networking. It's always
Yeah.
about everything. Because of your location, are you familiar with or connected with Brian Darwas? Yeah, Atomic
Oh,
Hot Rods.
yeah, yeah. I've never met him before, but I've been following him, and he follows me for a while. That guy is cool, man. I mean,
Dude,
I
he's got
love
the
everything he
baddest.
does.
He's got the baddest Model A that he's put together from shit. But the dude's real with that
Kind of
flat.
reminds me of like Rob Zombie in a very cool
Yes,
way.
with that
I don't
flat
know. Like,
bill, I'm like, dude, you look like some sort of fucking mini trucker.
I mean, like I grew up. I love the Munsters. I loved, I must have
There,
watched
that's
that drag
Brian
racing
right there.
episode, and that dude just like I could have never met him before or seen him, and just happened to see that guy and go, that dude likes the Munsters.
Yes. Well,
And there's like a connection there always
Yeah.
with people like that for me, because I'm like, you definitely love Eddie's go-kart and his Stingray, and I know we'll have a conversation about cool stuff,
Yeah, that
and the
dude-
same thing with him. I've never met him, but I'd love to
Yeah.
hang out with him.
Yeah, all of his movies are rough, edgy. He doesn't care. He put them
I
together.
got like a Magnus Walker vibe too.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
And we had that Magnus and Rob Zombie kind of look, and he is 100% genuine.
Yeah.
And the dude knows his shit, and he knows what is supposed to quote unquote be there and what's
Yeah.
not and whatever. He made Get My Gun, and they did a scene where someone was murdered. The local people called the cops and said, you got to get down here. They just murdered someone in the street. And the cops came down, and he goes, I'm shooting a movie, you dumbass. He goes, this is the head. And they had a head of a guy, and he's holding it by the hair. And he's like,
Oh
I've
my
got the
God.
head of this guy. And he goes, you really think we shot this nun in the street and stuffed her in the trunk? What are you, an idiot?
It is New York.
My story is not as good as that one, but we had the cops called on us a couple of times and stuff because,
Yeah.
we're just, nobody knows what you're doing. But
Sure.
we were shooting one scene, and it was like a rainy day, and I went to my buddy, and we were shooting with his grandfather had this beautiful Ford truck. You'll see it in the film. And I was like, we just need a brick wall. We need a place to just shoot this. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. So we back his truck up by this bagel store right by his house. And it's like a Sunday morning. Nobody's there. And we're shooting. And all of a sudden, this truck rips up, stops. Two guys get out. One of them's definitely carrying. And I'm like, oh boy. And he goes, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, we're shooting a movie. I'm sorry. Like, is this your place? And he's like, yeah, we're watching you on the camera. We're watching this big truck back up to our place, and they're screaming. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then I showed him the camera, and I showed them what we were shooting. They went, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you guys could shoot here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nice.
But it was scary for a moment,
Yeah. How about you continue shooting the movie, and I don't want it to shoot you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game shooting.
Well, and that's the thing when you're dealing with such a low budget. Sometimes it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask permission, because asking permission will cost you money.
I should get that
sometimes
tattooed on me somewhere. I
Right?
say that all the time.
Yeah, like
You have to.
if you're going to be doing something like that, there's certain municipalities may require a permit to shut down a street in front of your grandma's house and park a dozen cars, right? Like, no, we just did it because the timing and the opportunity was there. We recorded it, and before anybody had a chance to call the cops, We were done.
Quick story. Yeah, a quick story. But so we did really well in the film circuit, and in the festival circuit, and we're getting all these accolades. And I get a message from the mayor of my town, and they go, "You're getting a citation." And I go, "Oh no, we're in trouble." And they're like, "No, no, no, no. We're recognizing it's a good citation." And I was like, "Oh."
You ain't getting a
And then in
ticket.
front of the whole courtguess in my
You're
whole
getting
village.
accolades. You're getting accolades. You're not getting a ticket.
Yeah, I'm like, I broke every rule in the book here. And I guess we did a good job.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is too, like, we didn't make a movie that I feel like it's a movie that people could be proud to say was shot in their town, and they're supportive of arts and wanting to see somebody succeed rather than knock me over the head and stop me. They'd rather see someone like myself succeed, and I really appreciate that. And I live in a town called Valley Stream, and there's a lot of famous people that came from Ed Burns, as we said, Steve Buscemi, there's a Fred Armisen, Jim Brewer. So many creative, amazing people came from here. So I think there's like a lineage that we're trying to keep going. And I'm actually trying to see if I can get one of those guys to do a quick cameo in the new one. So if you support your local village and you do the right thing, sometimes they'll just work with you and then against you.
So I do have to ask one thing, just real quick. I kind of just took a quick browse through the credits. I did not see Bob Uecker's name in there anywhere, but I could have swore I heard him as one of the announcers at the drag strip.
No, actually it's Walter Fry. Walter was the announcer at Englishtown Raceway Park in New Jersey, and Top Fuel Tony, who's the announcer at South Mountain Raceway, and actually my dad, who did some of the announcing in it. But Walter was, the voice in my car when I was drag racing, and I always say he helped me out more than he knows, because I'd be racing and I'd be in the car and I'd have my radio on all the way, and the guy would leave in the other lane and I'd hear Walter go on the announcing. "Oh, he's a little slow out of the gate." I go, "Okay, great. We know, we don't have to hit the light that hard." So, he was always in my head. And when I was doing the movie, I couldn't hear anybody else doing the announcing but him. And so I called him up and said, "Hey, Walter, would you come to my studio and do this?" And it was such an honor. But that was the one thing that was really important too to the movie, was to have good announcing, because I feel like that helps sell the experience for people that actually have raced before, that it sounds like real announcers, and he is the real deal.
But see, that's 100% of what you put your heart and soul into the movie. That's your nostalgia that's in your head, is you're racing. You hear him on the radio. You hear him doing the broadcasting and everything. And that takes your nostalgia that I could stare at you all day and I wouldn't be able to see that. But you took what's in your head and you put it on of the ability, put it on, I don't want to call it film, for God's sakes. It makes me sound like 100.
I wish it was.
Right. But you put it in the ability for everyone else to see that. And I can view your nostalgia, and that gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling. And that's bitching.
You asked me before what advice I'd give to other people that are wanting to maybe make a film or anything. The other thing is trust your gut. Like, the thing about making a film, especially like if you're doing something that is like, you have to trust your taste buds. And I'm sure I could have gotten a million people to do the announcing, but there was only one person that I heard from beginning to end when I wrote the script, which was Walter. And when Walter came on, when we were in the theater, we had 125 people in the theater for the premiere. And I heard Walter go, Sunday, 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 and do the whole thing. I cried. I actually had a moment where I was tearing up because I was like, this is so amazing. This is exactly how it felt for me. And I could feel the audience feeling that. And people came up to me and was like, the announcers were incredible. Or, for instance, there's a moment where there's fire dispatch and police dispatch going back and forth in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people that was at the theater said, those guys sounded legit. And I said, well, one guy is my Uncle Charlie, and he is the chief of the fire department in Valley Stream. And the other guy is my Uncle Billy, and he is a retired NYPD cop and the New York City Fire Department.
Go with what you know.
And those guys talking on the radio, it can't get any more legit than that. And I trusted that. They never acted. They never did anything before. They're freaking out. They're going, what the hell are we doing? I go, just trust me. It's going to work. Mm-hmm. And it killed, and so you got to just trust your gut, because that's what's going to tell you what's going to taste good, how much salt you got to put on it, how much pepper you want,
Mm-hmm.
Your gut's going to do all that for you.
Yeah. Jason, you talked earlier about just getting shit done. All I could think of is Gene Hackman as Popeye Doyle in French Connection, driving that Le Mans. Ready and go. Well, you're going to crash into a random dude that has no idea that they're filming, and we're going to keep this in the movie. You can't get away with that shit today. I watched Chips Patrol and watched Chips in the 70s in the beginning.
Yeah.
They're passing the same silver 76 Mustang 100 times.
We were trying really hard not to do that.
Really hard.
That was really good that I saw when I was in the middle of making it was Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh yeah.
And I went, wow, this is perfection. Like, I cannot see one flaw in it personally, minus the kid's bike, but whatever. Everything else, I was like, but what really informed me was like how authentic the sound was. And that was important to me for the film too, but I also played around with things like, I saw that, it wasn't enough to have just the, open-headed 350 on the dragster going down the track. I was like, I'm going to grab some audio I have of, John Force's Top Fuel Funny Car and just layer that in there, because
overdo it.
When you're in the theater and you hear that, it's going to just put you there. And even though we're bending the rules of reality a little bit, part of it is to give the audience a cool experience. I mean, it's the closest you're going to get to being in a drag strip than probably any movie is going to give you, I think. And I think that because I've seen it in the theater a bunch now, and I've watched people react, especially when that dragster goes down the track, and that feeling when it's in those big speakers, it's almost like you're there. And that was something Ford versus Ferrari did great. Their sound design was fantastic. So I must have watched that like 20 or 30 times when I was doing all the sound effects and all that stuff for the movie. But I was very, very interested in making sure that I had a real 426 Hemi idling and pulling by and all these things to really try to be authentic. If that car had a 350, that's what it got. If this had that, a blower on it, we try to get that sound. So there was a really attention to detail that was really high for even that level. And Ford versus Ferrari really put me in that zone. There's a great little making of the sound that they put out. I think Vanity Fair or something put it out. I watched that 10 times. It was so informative. So, we did put a lot of care into this to make it fun. We want the people to have fun. And I think people are. It sounds like you guys had a good time watching it, and that makes me feel good inside. It makes me want to make another one.
So speaking of fun and speaking of detail, I've got to know one last thing before we wrap up. Leaving the finish line in reverse. Did that really happen to you? Is that part of the dream, or did that really happen? I got to know.
Okay. Yeah, no, it really did happen. So that was probably the last time I really drag raced too, which was even more embarrassing. I had raced a lot before that. And we filmed the movie at South Mountain Raceway in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania. And before, we even filmed up there or anything, I had went and raced there. My dad and I went up there with his Dodge Ram pickup truck that he just bought, and he's like, "Let's put it in the street. You race it. Let's see." And I go up to did my first time shot. I deep staged the car. Fine, did fine. The second time shot, my dad goes, "Listen, you know what I want you to do?" And I knew I shouldn't have done it, but he's like, "I want you to try something." He goes, "I want you to go past the bulb, and I want you to back into the staging lane, and so you're really deep." And I was like, I don't really want to do that. He goes, "Listen, just do it, do it." I go, "Okay." So I back the car into the lights, and I'm watching. The other guys are going crazy because they don't know what I'm doing, and they're yelling at me. And I'm like, and they just like, we're like, "All right, let him go, let him go." But I forgot to put the car back into drive. And I'm getting on the converter and for the second touch, and I whop the throttle and I'm going backwards.
Oh,
and I
shit.
see the guy behind me that's mopping up, going, "Ah!" And I'm like, "I'm gonna kill him." And I hit the brakes and then I just threw it in a drive and slammed it.
He's
And
never been invited back since.
well, actually, I went to the final round.
Oh, there
So
you go.
it worked out all right, but nobody ever forgot that, and neither did I. And so I was like, I'm going to write that in, because like the difference in the movie, there's two characters. There's my character, who's kind of the mechanic, maybe not the best driver, and then there's the brother who's not a mechanic, kind of like Days of Thunder. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just driving the thing, kind of thing. But together, they're a good combo. So I wanted my character to kind of have some flaws, and I thought that would be a cool little thing to insert to the character that really happened to me, to make him seem less likely to be the hero, So
I thought it had to do with Toad driving a car backwards on American Graffiti.
Oh. No, that's good too. See, man, this is great conversation because I'm not even. Maybe it was. Maybe it's part of my.
It had to be, especially when he gets out and he yells at the old man. He said, "We've had an accident." He said, "Well, God damn it, just be careful next time."
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a great editor. Paul
stuff
can make it sound any way we want to.
Well, we were talking about Ford versus Ferrari, and we had to look up what color the original first release Mustang was. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
Oh, was it
because
white?
Was it black or blue?
Black.
Yeah.
It was black.
It was black because the first one that was sold to someone was a light.
That just
blue.
came up.
That's right. That first one that was sold to a car was sold to a lady, and it was a light blue car. And
it was Henry Ford II, right? He drove it around and stuff. Right?
That I think so, but
yeah.
That was the very first vehicle sold to a person not Ford Motor Company. The promotional vehicle that was at Chicago World's Fair 1964 display. I'm like Rain Man. I'm sorry. Was black.
Definitely.
And it was black. And I'm in my brain, I'm going, no, that car was light blue. That car was white, because there's promo cars that are white and all sorts of stuff. And we watched it in Ford versus Ferrari, and we weren't out of the theater 2 seconds. And Paul and I are looking up what color the very first Mustang was, and what color was the car on display at Chicago Autorama, the Automobile Expo. It was black. They got it right.
Wow.
I was blown away.
A lot of attention to detail on that one. I mean,
I was blown away. I was expecting to go, oh, these guys, totally screwed up, but it was dead on.
Yeah, when you're spending that kind of money, you got Christian Bale and Matt Damon. I don't think people are looking to make a mistake like that. I feel like the stakes are high. So
yeah.
Even Iacocca, I wasn't sure about that actor, and then when he came in, I was like, this is good. He was a good choice.
Yeah. I get to hear Lee Iacocca all the time. I've got an 84 Chrysler LeBaron. It talks to me.
Your door is ajar.
Yeah, your oil fluid, your oil pressure your oil level is low. Yeah, Lee Iacocca talks to me every time I get in the car.
That's That's great.
Yeah, it's terrible and fantastic because I get in that car, and I got in it yesterday, and all I could think of is I'm sitting inside Kit from Knight Rider.
Yeah.
And Lee Iacocca, he sounds like the speak and spell. You know, it's terrible.
We're way off the rails here. We gotta wrap this up, John.
Nice. Well, this is awesome. Thank you very much, Anthony. This is bitchin', dude. You did a great job. Well, I know your movie Sunday is 100% a giant commercial for what drives youth. So thank you very much. And we push to have everyone support the next generation. Pass on your information. Make sure that the next generation can do that as much as possible to their next generation. And your movie just supports that glowingly. So again, thank you very much. Just a wonderful, wonderful film. And everyone who is watching or listening, has your movie been released completely to where everyone can go see it? Is that correct? Has that happened?
Yeah, we're working on having it like streaming or something like that.
Okay.
Like we're talking to some, like trying to get it to Motor Trend, actually. That would be like kind of like the best first place, I think. I'm trying to get their attention with it. But right now what we're trying to do is raise some money to make a sequel. So if people want to buy them, to see the movie, best way to do it, you can hop on our website, sundaysundayfilm.com. You could also go on Instagram, Sunday Film, or Facebook. And I could, send you a copy. We have them on like little USB drives that have a keychain on it and everything. And, the money is going to go back into the pizza fund to make the next one. Which is a great way to support the film. We also have T-shirts. If you can read that, it says it's a different kind of church.
Yes.
That's a line from the movie. We're selling T-shirts and stuff like that too.
Both of our directives are exactly running on the same track. So thank you very much. But I can think that everything culminated in this moment in time, and I was able to see the finished, quote unquote, finished movie. I'm glad to see it when we did. Fantastic film. I can't stand on the rooftop and yell enough.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And you guys are great. And like you said, it all happens when it's supposed to happen. So I'm glad we're here, and I appreciate the support. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, guys, and if you're listening right now, like John said, make sure you head over to the website, sundaysundayfilm.com. Reach out to Anthony, get a copy of that film. You're not going to be disappointed, and you have my guarantee on that. So just make sure you head on over there. Great film. My wife even sat and watched it with me. And she's totally not a car gal, whatever you want to call it. Don't go into it with high expectations, but you come out with a high level of intrigue, with satisfaction, with the knowing the ability of the hard work and dedication of everybody, including yourself, that went into putting this film together. And I can't praise it enough myself. So again, thanks for putting that out there for the public to see. Continued success with awards, continued success with part 2. I can't wait to see that. And thank you for being a part of the Get Out and Drive podcast.
Thank you. You guys are great.
Cruise on over to our website, getoutanddrive.com, for all the info you never wanted to know about our podcast. Hit us up on our listener hotline, be the first to know what's happening, get industry news, and grab your Get Out and Drive merch. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on Twitter at Get Out and Drive Pod.
What drives you?
I'm going to look into the future and say, did we just become best friends?
I think so. You want to do some karate in the garage?
We can. We're going to move the furniture in a minute. I'm sorry to anyone who's listening. We're going to move the furniture in a minute. There's so much more room for activities.